Brett Garsed, welcome to Australian Musician.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Today we're talking mainly about this track from the inside that you've donated to Guitars for Veterans Australia. It appears on their second album, which is called Second Tour. It's available on the Guitars for Veterans Australia Bandcamp page. Do you have any family connection to war veterans, or did you just think it was a good cause?
Oh, look, my father served, all my uncles served. My brother, my older brother John, who's 10 years older than me, he only just missed out on going to Vietnam. I think they just stopped sending people there when he was almost about due to have his number called up. But yeah, my father served in the Second World War, as did all my uncles. And so there's obviously a strong connection to just the people that sacrificed so much. And just the fact that I'm at this age, I'll be 62 next year. And I've never had to go near anything like that. Like I've never had to endure any kind of conflict like that. So it's not lost on me how lucky I am that I've been spared that.
Yeah, for sure. Um, this version of From the Inside features Jerry Pantasis on drums and Craig Newman on bass. Did you record together with those guys, or was it done remotely?
No, the song was has been kicking around since the late 90s, like around 1999, that sort of time frame. And the chords, the opening chords for it just kind of fell out of the guitar by accident. I think I was trying to play an E minor chord and wasn't really paying attention, and I was a half step down, and this beautiful E flat major seven came out, and it just the other chords just followed. And I thought, oh, this is nice. I should keep this in mind. And I was driving around in this old truck at the time in LA, and didn't have a working cassette player or radio, and so all I could do was listen to the music in my head. And I was driving up the driveway to my mate's place, and that chorus just came to me right there. And I thought, well, this is great. I've got to do something with this. And I did a solo album called Big Sky back in about 2002. And I did track it with Rick Fiora on bass and Tos Panos on drums, but just the backing track, just the audio, with hopes that I could get it done for the album. But it never happened. I didn't need the tunes, so it just sat on the back burner until 2020 when the pandemic hit, and I thought I should do something with this. And I had Rick Fiora play bass, and I did try to salvage the previous version of it, but it didn't work. So I re-recorded it myself here at the house and had Jerry play drums to it remotely, and Rick did his part in LA, and I put it up on YouTube for a while. And then when we were doing the Guitars for Vets album, Lee Bradshaw did mention that they were looking for a 10th song, and they just couldn't seem to find anything. And I suggested this tune because it deals with that subject of emotional angst. And I was going through a terrible time at that time in America and having all sorts of questionable thoughts and making very questionable decisions. And I thought, well, when I finished the lyric in 2020, I thought this works, this suits this project perfectly, and I was more than happy to donate it. What a wonderful cause.
Yeah. The Budapest Scoring Orchestra, how did they fit into this?
That was Lee's genius. The original version I did of it was just me here with the little keyboard with the BBC Symphonic Orchestra strings from Spitfire Audio. I'm not an endorsee, by the way, but yeah, just me sort of two and three fingering my way through it, trying to get some string sounds on there. And when the opportunity came up to do this, well, for a start, we had Craig retrack the bass because we wanted to have that consistency through the album, even though Rick's bass part was beautiful, but Craig's is too. Like, I mean, he's such a phenomenal musician. Jerry was already playing drums on it, so we had that. And then I suggested to Lee, would he be able to do? He was originally just going to do keyboard strings to it, and even he said, "Oh, mate," he said, I want to hear the real thing on it." So he found the money to get the Budapest guys to play on it. And my wife and daughter and I sat here in Castlemaine, and I think it was on a Zoom call and watched them track it. It was crazy.
Fantastic. Do you recall which guitar you used on the 2020 version?
Yeah, it was if I get out of the way of it, was this guy, just the old red Strat. That harkens back to the Farnham days, that thing. So
Yeah. So
so
how did you acquire that guitar originally?
my mother bought it for me when I was about 13. I think she bought it in 1975, and yeah, get this, she paid $650 for it from Brash Sutton's back in 1975. And my cousin and I worked it out. That was probably an equivalent of about 3.5 grand back then.
Mhm.
So it was a huge outlay for her. But I remember just saying to her, like, if you get me this guitar, I've got it for life. That's it. We don't get a better one. Because back then, your basic food groups were Rickenbacker, Gibson, and Fender. There were no Ibanez to speak of really back then or anything like that. And all the other copy guitars were pretty dreadful. And I said, just get me a quality guitar. I'll never quit. And true to my word, I'm still playing it. So
Uh, so how did you record that guitar part for that track?
it's all done. You can just see it. It's almost off camera here, but the Axe Effects, I use that. I've used that for years now. Like their gear, I've used for about at least 10 years now, both live and it's just perfect for here because I'm pretty much a studio bound musician now. I don't really do much live work. It's not necessarily by choice, but just ever since John Farnham became ill, uh, obviously we're not working with John anymore live, and the calls haven't really turned up. So I have a Patreon site, so I mainly do all that sort of stuff. So I'm just completely kitted out for the live the studio experience. You know what I mean? So the Axe FX is just brilliant.
Yeah, have you spoken to John recently at all?
I haven't spoken to him. I just listened to his audiobook, so it was lovely to hear his voice again. But look, I don't bother him. I'd see how much he'd give to his fans and all that on the road. And I thought, well, I think, well, he knows how to find me if he needs to talk to me. And it, I just tend to give him his space. You know what I mean? He's such a public person. The privacy's valuable to those people. So the last thing he needs is his guitar player bugging him. So I don't do it.
Yeah, you are known for playing with the Farnham Band and, of course, appearing on Whispering Jack. What are your strongest memories of your time with the John Farnham Band?
Oh, there'd be too many to mention. I think it's just the weird coincidence that I ended up working with John because I'd become quite obsessed with him, especially after he joined Little River Band. I'd heard some of the tracks from, like, obviously I heard Help when it came out, and I remember him from doing songs like One and Raindrops and everything from his early career. I was around when he was doing all that stuff. And then even when I heard One, I thought, man, this guy's got a voice on him, and it's so hard for us to look past the image, you know what I mean? Like people couldn't look past John's image as a pop star and really listen to what they were hearing, which was just an unparalleled power and range and durability, I might add. And so once I bought the Net album by Little River Band, and I just was listening to the stuff he was singing on there, and I was thinking, can he do this live? And as it turned out, my friends and I went to Bathurst, the car race, and LRB were opening this new amphitheater they'd built there that year, and we went to that concert. And I remember standing there watching it, going, "Well, he's actually holding back on the albums. He can not only do this live, he can obliterate it. He's so much better live than he is." I've been to see so many heavy metal bands and all this sort of stuff where the singers are they're out of breath and they're holding the microphone out for the audience to sing, and they're ducking lyrics, they're ducking melodies because they can't cut them live. They can do them in the studio, but not John. And just this wild coincidence that when I decided to send out tapes and things, I just sent one to the Glenn Wheatley organization because I found their address in Sonic's magazine, and Glenn was pretty much the only person that responded. And just this beautiful letter that I've got in a frame on the wall, and it just said, "I just got your tape. Please call me." And he said John wanted to do a quick pub tour before LRB started up again, and that was in summer of '85. And so we went out and did that, and that was when I just got to experience the actual phenomenon that is John Farnham. I mean, I was gobsmacked. I couldn't believe I was standing there with him in a room, but to actually experience the whirlwind that he is night after night on stage, man, what a gift.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about some of the more recent things that you have done. You recorded the Zeppelin track "Rock and Roll" with Jay Perino. How did that collaboration come about?
I got to meet Jay quite a while ago. I think he might have come for a guitar lesson. He might have been down from Sydney for something and popped by, and at that stage I didn't know what a phenomenal singer he was. And we were just talking guitars and going over that sort of stuff. And then through the course of the pandemic and the lockdowns, when everyone was trying to keep projects alive and keep going, Jay just reached out to me and wanted me to do a few things with him, and we ended up doing quite a bunch of songs. I even sang on a version of Billie Jean that he did. It was like a version that Chris Cornell had done, I think. And And so I had a crack at that. And hey, we had nothing to lose during the pandemic. We just tried to reinvent ourselves as best we could. But yeah, I've done a bunch of songs with Jay. He's quite prolific.
Yeah. Another thing you've been doing is playing some shows with Paul Mason, paying tribute to Jeff Beck.
Well, we did that one. That might be this year. We did that one early
That
this
was
year, and we just did one about 3 months ago at Bird's Basement. The very first one I did was with Paul at Bird's, I think the previous year.
okay.
And man, he's just amazing, isn't he? Like, I mean, I mean, Paul's got his own thing happening. Like, he's got his own sound happening. But when he does the Jeff Beck thing, I shut my eyes and Jeff is in the room. And I mean, I remember, I think I said to him, you couldn't have picked an easier guy to try and pay tribute to. I mean, man, that has got to be some of the toughest stuff to try and go near. But the hardest part for me doing those gigs is to not just play the Jeff Beck solos because I grew up on that stuff. Like I Blow by Blow and Wired were two of the first albums I ever heard when I was trying to learn to play the guitar. Unbeknownst to me, there'd be the local TV station here would play test pattern music while they were waiting across to the Melbourne stations for the news back in the old days in the 70s. And I was hearing these great instrumental tunes, and they were playing She's a Woman from Blow by Blow, and I didn't even know it until my brother-in-law gave me the cassette. And I went, hey, it's the test pattern music. And then, of course, I went digging through my brother-in-law's a really good drummer, by the way, so he has a fantastic record collection, and I would stay with him and my sister when I was a kid back when I was at school, and I just go rifling through his record collection, and I pulled out this one, and it's got a guy with a guitar on it, and I mean Jeff Beck Wired. And I thought, oh well, we'll see what this sounds like. And the first thing I heard was Lead Boots. So if anything's going to blow your head off, it's going to be that, and that was it. So I was a Jeff Beck devotee ever since then.
So, what did you take from Jeff's playing that you added to your own playing?
Well, well, at first I took everything I could, anything I could learn. I tried to learn it all note by note. I tried to learn Goodbye Pork Pie Hat. I had no idea what I was doing, of course, but I had to try. I had to try and learn Scatterbrain. And so at first I was just enthralled with what he could do on a guitar. But I think because I followed Jeff's career all through, if an album came out, I bought it. So I mean, the minute There and Back came out, I bought that, and I just loved that record. Then, then the following year, or a couple of years, I suppose, Flash came out, which was the Drum Machine album he did with Nile Rodgers, I think, producing. But that had the classic version of People Get Ready with Rod Stewart on it. So I think the thing I took from Jeff over the course of his career was just let yourself evolve and don't be afraid to do that. And he was fearless, wasn't he? Like, I mean, the Jeff Beck that we were left with just before he tragically passed away is so different to the one we began with all those years ago. Yet there's elements in there. Like one of my favorite Beck albums, it's referred to as the Orange album, I think, and it's an album with Cozzy Powell playing drums. I know Max Middleton's on there. I can't remember who's playing bass, but uh, uh, Bobby Tench is singing on it, and he's one of the greatest singers, and as I found out, a great guitar player, and it's one of my favorite albums. I think it's the one they did just before they did Blow by Blow, and he went sort of purely instrumental. But even then, you can still hear those elements of what Jeff was going to evolve into. It's all there. It just hasn't quite formulated yet, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's just that fearlessness to just let yourself go where the muse takes you, and he was unparalleled in that. What a loss. I was heartbroken when he died.
Yeah. You've been doing instructional videos for Guitar Vivo for a while now. Why is it important to impart your knowledge to others?
Well, I guess I certainly don't want to sound arrogant or anything like that, but I do feel like the one thing I've learned after so many years of doing this all over the world and sometimes on albums with my heroes, I mean, I do have a sound and I've got a vocabulary. Like I know I lack an enormous amount of experience in a lot of genres. I'm a terrible jazz musician. I'm not a proficient country player. I can sort of fake things. Uh, as I say, I know enough to get me either out of trouble or into it. But there's no way I could go and hang with a proper jazz trio or anything like that, or a country band, or you name it. But I do know that the technique I've developed over the years and the vocabulary I've built that's attached to that is unique. It is because I've done it in front of some of the people that I've actually stolen a lot of those ideas from, and I've done albums with them, and I can hear the two side by side, and I go, yeah, you can hear the influence, but I'm not stealing the vocabulary. That's a big part of it for me. The influence and the phrasing is obvious, but as long as I'm not playing their licks verbatim and I'm coming up with my own stuff, that really matters. And the way I've sort of learned to by myself to navigate the fretboard of the instrument. It's the more I talk to young players and show it to them, they're always really shocked and surprised to think that they're learning something new. So yeah, it is important to pass that on.
Uh, Tell me about your journey to get the tone that you are happy with in the earlier days. You know, trying one amp, oh, that doesn't go with that guitar, or that one does. Tell me about the journey, the
The,
thing you went
it,
through.
it is the strangest journey because the very first amp I had was by a company called Coronet, and I think they were about this big, and they had like an 8-inch speaker in them or something, little transistor jobbies. And they had a tremolo that if you turned it on, it sounded like a motorbike and it was actually louder than the amp itself. But they were hilarious fun. And that was the very first time I heard my guitar amplified. And then when we decided to form our band, I was in pubs playing live by the time I was about 13. So we were already rehearsing when I was about 11 or 12. And my cousin Andrew, who was the singer, who was a little older and had a job, he financed us all to get a little PA system, an M&R PA system, and he bought me a Jade Clubman amp. And I think Jade's an Australian company.
Yeah.
And that was the first amp I got, and it did have a distortion function on it, which was maybe about the same distortion Hank Marvin had with the Shadows. It was pretty lame. But the goal was always to get the Marshall because I was a Richie Blackmore fan. I got the Strat and I had to get the Marshall to match it, and I ended up getting one through a store in Frankston, which is still there to my shock. It's called Guitar Village, and
Oh, yeah.
I became good friends with those guys, and I got this beautiful old Marshall 100-watt super lead, which the piece of paper that was stuck to the inside of it, it was a 1970. That's when they built it. It was 1970. And ended up getting the matching sort of grey cloth cab for it. And I also bought this thing called the Altair Power Attenuator, which back then was like the Power Soaks that Tom Scholz made famous, but this was before those. And so I just saw it in a magazine and I thought somehow I think I need this. And if you ran to, the amp into that and then into the speaker, you attenuate the volume so you could run the amp on 8 but not kill everybody in the room. And that was a huge step. And then of course Eddie Van Halen happened. And I thought, well, I need more gain. And talked to the Guitar Village guys again, and they gave me a DOD or DOD preamp pedal. It's the old grey ones, and they didn't have an on-off switch, and it just had volume. That was it. So it was a clean boost. It was like if you plugged it into a clean amp and turned it up, it just made you louder. It wasn't a distortion pedal. But plugging that into the front of the Marshall meant that I could hit the front of the Marshall like a Gibson would as opposed to a Strat. So it gave me more input. And then my friend, another one of my friends I was doing plumbing school with, he gave me this weird thing, which was like an impedance transformer that people used to use on quarter-inch jack mic cables back in the 70s to boost the impedance over a long run. So I plugged the guitar into that and plugged that into the input of the Marshall, and it just took all the low end and just focused it. And I've got cassettes sitting around here, and it is the greatest guitar sound I've ever had. It was just, at the age of about, I don't know, 15, I found it. I found the sound. I didn't even look anymore after that. I went, I've got it. Then I just got busy with trying to learn how to play the thing. So,
Mhm.
but it was such a funny thing. Like that quest was over for me after I bought that Marshall and these weird things fell into my lap. And then I lost the Marshall. Dave Carr, who mixed the Guitars for Vets album, he actually has my Marshall, and I actually played through that on a couple of the tracks we did for the album. I did ask him if he'd sell it back to me, and he said, "Yeah, maybe to pay for my own funeral." So he's Dave's not stupid like I am. He's going to hang on to that amp. So he's still, but it's lovely to know it's in really good hands with Dave. He's such a beautiful player, but I was always worried it sort of just fell off the back of a truck somewhere and was destroyed. But no, it's in the best hands.
Uh,
So.
so what was your introduction to the Axe effects?
Um, Well, they were floating around. The XFX2, or I think it was the Ultra, was sort of doing the rounds. Andrew Farnham from Independent Music up in Canberra, he was sending the units around for people to try out, and one did turn up at my house around 2000 and might have been 2007, something like that. I can't remember. It was a while ago. Oh no, no, not 2007. No, I'm 2013 maybe. And of course, I did the typical thing, which is go through the presets. And I thought, nah, I don't think much of it. And that was it. Because I had a Bogner at that time. I had a Bogner Ecstasy that I was still using. So it was a pretty hard act to follow. And later on, when the Axe twos came out, I realized the benefit of them, like in a live situation and a recording situation. So Andrew was kind enough to send me one of those. And that's when I went down the rabbit hole of really going through the modelers, going through the speaker sims. A lot of times they give you IRs with updates. And I got this update that gave me about, oh, it was 100 different IRs. And I found this one in there. I went through them all the 412 cabs, all the 212 cabs. I tried every single one of them. And I found this one, and it's the same one I use to this day. It's just, I thought, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I'm still using it to this day. And it's just been this huge journey through to the XFX3. And it just by coincidence, I ended up using a Bogner, they call it the Euro Blue, they call it, yeah, which is basically the Bogner Ecstasy Blue channel, and that's what I use. So it's just a sound I've really become happy with, and I've just stuck with it. I get to the stage where I'm like, well, if I can express myself with this, then let's just get on with that, shall we? Like the whole Tone Quest thing drives me nuts, to be honest. I don't have the money for it, and I just don't have the time or the knowledge for it. I'd love to go and sit in a room with about five of my. I'd love to go and see Ian Moss's live rig, and just go, Mossy, show me how you drive this thing. Or go and talk to Diesel or any number of amazing players that whose sounds I love, and just say, show me how you drive this, and I'd love to just experience that. So I'm not precious about it, but yep, I'm happy with what I've got. I just sort of stick with that now.
Yeah. You've released two solo albums, Big Sky and Dark Matter. Any thoughts of a third one at some point?
Well, yeah, well, it's been over 10 years, so there should be, shouldn't there? It's like a decade between them. I'm just not a prolific songwriter, I guess. And I don't know, I just sort of felt like with Big Sky and Dark Matter, I felt like I said it. Like I really poured my heart and soul into those albums, and not to mention all my personal finances. And I'm so proud of what they are. I just worry about once I get involved in that, like I don't want to take time away from my family, and I don't want to take precious money away from us by investing in recording projects. So, but there are things kicking around. I do have a song that I need to get recorded, an instrumental tune that I need to get recorded because it feels like it's good and it's worth spending the time on. So maybe that'll get the ball rolling again. It only takes one song to get me going, and then you can't get me out of here. So I'll just be stuck in that zone again.
Do you still get to listen to music just for enjoyment? And if so, what have you been listening to?
Well, my daughter, she's nearly 17, so she connects me to a lot of music, and she went through a huge phase of loving K-pop stuff. So I really got into a lot of that and became quite an expert on BTS and Blackpink, and I took her to the Blackpink concert when they came out, and she just went to see Stray Kids and all that. But she also keeps me up to date with just modern pop. So, I mean, one band I found, and I was kind of late to the party for these guys, but it was a band called Noah, Knower. Drummer Lewis Cole and Genevieve Tardy, the singer. And I just happened upon them doing these beautiful live takes from this house that they seem to record in. And then I was watching, I heard this song called Crash the Car, and it's the most beautiful ballad, beautiful chords and really interesting harmonies. And then I found this other track, and I think it was called Overtime. And it just featured this incredible keyboard playing, which I found out was Ray Thistlethwaite from Thirsty Merc. And I only knew Ray from Thirsty Merc, and I didn't realize he was such an incredible virtuoso. And of course, now he's showing up everywhere with Joe Satriani and all sorts of people. But So yeah, they've been a really exciting band to listen to. James Ryan, my good friend that I've done a million gigs with, James turned me on to this incredible band called Big Wreck quite a few years ago, and I think Ian Thornley is their guitar player singer, and so I really dug them. Oh yeah, there are other things out there too that I like, but I have no prejudice when it comes to music. Like if my daughter's listening to something in the background and I hear it, I go, man, I really like that. What is that? And it could be anything. It could be a K-pop band, or it could be Ariana Grande. It could be anything. I don't mind. If I like it and it catches my ear, then I'm into it.
Yeah. Um, we're almost into 2025. Do you have any musical projects on the go?
Um, Not that I know of, but that's how my years always start anyway. Like they always start with a blank canvas and a blank calendar. And I think, oh well, we'll see what happens this year. And then out of the blue, someone contacts me to do something, or I do something myself. And I just re-kitted my studio with a new computer, and it's running really great. So, because this is a whole other universe for me as well, having to learn how to set all this up so that I can do Zoom calls and things like this, and do online videos for people and stuff like that. It's another universe compared to just doing audio. So I finally got it. I think I finally got it bug proof. So now I can just get back to enjoying it. And I think 2025 will be a creative year, I'm sure.
Yeah. Brett, it's been great to chat. People can hear your track from the inside from the Guitar for Vets album on their Bandcamp page. Um, and it's been great to chat. We'll catch you later.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg.